Hey guys, for those of you who like Signs of the Times and following the news in relation to watching Signs of the Times and studying the second coming of Jesus Christ, there's some really interesting things going on right now. I just wanted to comment on them and connect them to something that Joseph Smith supposedly said. So, first off, we have in the news this stuff about Trump and how he's positioning two nuclear subs in these two locations. So you can see over here up in the upper left of this image, this is a map of the United States. So Bangor, Washington is one location, so just off the coast there on the Pacific. And then Kings Bay, Georgia, down here in the bottom right in the Atlantic. So these are the two strategic locations where these two nuclear subs will be placed. The reason that he says he's doing this is because of some remarks that the Russians have made.
In the word nuclear, I say, my eyes light up and I say, we better be careful because it's the ultimate threat. He shouldn't have said it. He's got a fresh mouth.
So the fresh mouth he's talking about is coming from this guy, Dmitry Medvedev, and he's responding to some remarks that this man made. What I think is also interesting is this is coming just after a few days ago, Russia had this 8.8 earthquake off the coast in the ocean. There was a big tsunami warning going out. We were actually a little nervous and concerned for my sister who was in Hawaii, and she was just outside of the red tag area in Hawaii. It turned out to be fine. There was only about 4 to 5 foot waves there and she was safe. But for a couple hours, we were really nervous because whenever these kinds of earthquakes happen in the ocean, it can be a little unpredictable in terms of tsunami and how it's going to affect all of the coastal areas in the region. And so we were kind of worried about her. It ended up being okay. But this just happened a few days ago, and there was a lot of damage in Russia in terms of the tsunami that came and just the earthquake itself, having shaken some buildings. So there's this prophecy that is recorded in the 1890 issue of the Juvenile Instructor. This is the original source is Juvenile Instructor, volume 25, number 6, page 162. And it was mentioned in a book that I had read, and so I was trying to find it online, and the only places that I could find it are on these two websites, one of them the Joseph Smith Foundation. So you'd probably have to go look at the church history archive, like the catalog that's online, and I haven't bothered to do that because this is actually a really famous one. It's been quoted for the last 100 years, and you can find it in all kinds of lectures from BYU, from different scholars, and it's a very famous one. But what it says is very interesting, and it mentions, this idea of what may be playing out on the world stage right now. So Elder Jesse W. Fox Sr. received the narration from Father Taylor, the father of the late President John Taylor. The old gentleman said that at one time the prophet Joseph was in his house conversing about the Battle of Waterloo, in which Father Taylor had taken part. Suddenly the prophet turned and said, "Father Taylor, you will live to see, though I will not, greater battles than that of Waterloo. The United States will go to war with Mexico and thus gain an increase of territory. The slave question will cause a division between the North and the South, and in these wars greater battles than Waterloo will occur." But he continued with emphasis, "When the great bear lays her paw on the lion, the winding up scene is not far distant." These words were uttered before there was any prospect of war with Mexico, and such a thing as division in the United States was never contemplated. Yet these fierce struggles came, and though Joseph himself was slain before they occurred, Father Taylor lived to witness some of the world's most remarkable battles. The struggle between the bear and the lion has not yet happened, but as surely as Joseph the prophet ever predicted such an event, so surely it will not fail of its fulfillment. And so what's interesting here is this great bear and this lion. Many and most people who've quoted this have interpreted this as Russia and England. So the idea is if you see Russia make a threat specifically against England, then that would be perhaps what this is talking about. Now, some might argue this could also include the United States, or just the United States and Europe, NATO. There's just so many different interpretations and opinions. So I'm just sharing the most common, that people mostly interpret this Great Bear as Russia. This is because that's the symbol, like their national symbol. England's is tied to the lion. And so for this reason, they kind of interpreted it this way. And anyway, this whole thing playing out today may have some connection there. I've shared in the past some other prophecies that were recorded in a book that I read called Prophecy Key to the Future by Dwayne Crowther. They include Russia, they include a war that involves them and the United States and England. Prophecy Key to the Future by Dwayne Crowther, he mentions several different prophecies that had to do with a third world war and also a fourth. um, this is his little chronology of events. He has everything divided by preparatory wars in terms of the prophecies that are noted in scripture, and then the commentary that he uses throughout his book that elaborate on interpretations of those scriptures. And it's this third world war that he sees as the demarcation or sign that the time of the Gentiles is being fulfilled, and that we're about to head into a period of wars of total destruction. Many people who study signs of the times and the second coming and eschatology, they view nuclear war as something that could be what was being described anciently in terms of war and the level of destruction that it could cause. And so I think most people that I've ever spoken with or talked to about these things believe that nuclear war could very well fulfill these prophecies that lead to this winding up scene, which is where Christ appears on the Mount of Olives. And that would be the third key appearance of Jesus Christ to the world. And then right before this, like those three key appearances happen, and it leads up to his appearance to the whole world in glory, or the coming in glory. Now, one other thing that's worth mentioning is section 87 of Doctrine and Covenants, because we'll be studying this section this coming week for the Come Follow Me. And this is a very interesting revelation and prophecy on war that was given through Joseph Smith, which is canonized. So, unlike all of these little rumors and hearsays of things that he supposedly said, this is canonized. And the church sustained this canon. So, these are things that are maybe worth thinking about. But the Civil War will start in South Carolina. This was noted in Doctrine and Covenants, and that's exactly what happened. This prophecy, I don't think Joseph Smith gets a lot of credit for this, but he did prophesy this the way that it happened. And the way that Joseph laid it out in section 87 is, this is like the beginning of wars and rumors of wars. And these go all the way to the second coming, according to this section of Doctrine and Covenants. So maybe these are just some other things to think about. This ultimately leads to a full end of all nations, which is noted here in section 87. I have a lot of commentary on this section. It's a very interesting section, and these prophecies, I think, are starting to come to pass. We're seeing definitely boundary lines have changed just in the 20th century, and I would venture to say that those will change again as we continue with these wars in among the nations. So there's a purpose for those. It's mainly to be able to take the gospel to all the nations of the earth, and that includes the nations that have been without Jesus Christ, not knowing Jesus Christ, which the scriptures refer to as heathen nations. And in Dwayne Crowther's book, he divides like the Gentile nations as the modern Christian nations. You can think like the West, the modern world, Europe, United States, kind of those first world countries, and then the heathen nations as all of those that worship other gods besides Jesus Christ. And the final phase of the gathering of Israel is to break into those nations and establish stakes of Zion there, according to how Crowther was interpreting these prophecies. So that would be kind of like the final phase of the gathering that happens before the final key appearance of Jesus Christ. And so, anyway, that's kind of where he had his thoughts all laid out, and I see this news today fitting in with what he has right here is like Third World War that leads to anarchy and internal wars in the United States and other allied nations. So I think that if his chronology of events has any merit to it, then that's where that would fit in. So let me know your thoughts in the comments, what you guys think about this bear and lion prophecy, and just what's happening today in terms of the news with Russia. I know recently they'd made it very difficult for the church to function and operate there. So there's just a lot going on, and I kind of see it all as playing into wars and rumors of wars in terms of the signs of the times. So let me know your thoughts and what you think you see happening right now.